Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, your home for the questionable advice for the bewildered and befuddled, random pop culture recommendations, and conversations about you feelings. Be sure to send in your letters seeking advice on our anonymous form at dearromancewriter.com.
Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network, a podcast community of everything romance and romance related. If you're into romance fiction of any flavor, the Frolic Podcast Network includes shows that feature book club style discussions, author interviews, comedy, critique, and fantastic conversations as well.
It includes some of the most innovative, interesting, and entertaining podcasts, including Kinda Dating, Crappy Friends, My Imaginary Friends, Smart Podcast Trashy Books, and Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. What does this mean for you, the listener? More shows to enjoy and more opportunities for us to introduce you to great episodes and new podcasts you'll love. Find new shows to add to your podcast subscriptions at frolic.media/podcasts. Now on to this week's show.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Dear Romance Writer. We are very excited to give you questionable advice today. And along with us to do it is the fabulous Angelina M. Lopez, who I have known for years. And we came up together as baby writers. Yay!
Right.
We love it. So Angelina, for those poor folks who haven't gotten to know you for years, please tell everybody about yourself.
I write sexy contemporary romances. Avery and I met, it was so long ago. We've been through so many things together. It's really fantastic to be here hanging out with you. So I write sexy contemporary romances. My first book was Lush Money. I just finished up that series. It's the Filthy Rich series. And so Serving Sin was the third book that just came out 2 days ago, I guess. I don't really remember time right now. Ever. But yeah, that came out 2 days ago. And so the whole series is about strong, wealthy women who get what they want because they've earned it. So it's really
nice,
kind of feminist, sexy, but really, I really like to pair them with strong alpha men who adore them and worship them and really admire the strength. That's important to me. Sorry if you're getting beeps. I've been a long-time writer. I've been writing for 20 years, didn't publish for any of them until 2019. So finally, it was great to finally write and get published, and been involved in the romance community a long time, which is just the best thing when you're oh, I know Avery from this, and I know Zia from this, and I know Roan from this, and to have that kind of, I don't know, just kind of background and understanding, and it's just such an amazing community. And so when you guys, I saw this idea come up in threefold, because I follow all of you on my social media, and I was each of you, I was like, amazing idea. When can I be on the show? I wasn't even no, I was how can I be part of this? So I was not, I think Zio wrote, and I think it was in 2 minutes. I was like, yes, now please.
Yeah.
Today? Are we on the show today?
All caps.
So yes, I think this is an awesome idea. And I think there is nothing more wise than romance writers, and especially the three of you. So
that's going to be our new tag. That's our new tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wise. Angelina said
wise.
so.
Yeah.
And then I want the especially the three of us. That has to be.
Absolutely. So, I think it's just true. It's just true.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we love having you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
we've been looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Yay.
Let's jump into our first letter. This is a good one. It says, Dear Romance Writer, I've been with my partner for more than 5 years now, and it's been mostly a great journey till here. He's kind, respectful, funny, and so talented. We share the same values and we get along really well. The great and the bad thing is that we're in a duo/band together, so we also work together. Much of our future is about getting our music off the ground and out there. It's also a source of stress for us and something that affects the relationship sometimes. However, and this is the big one, he is not very outwardly affectionate, with words or physically. while I, on the other hand, am very expressive with my affection, especially physically, and I wholeheartedly need it back. So I constantly perceive a lack from his side. We also don't have nearly as much sex as I'd like to. I've been feeling this for a few years now, and I've communicated my desires to him. He always listens, and he always promises to try. We've always had pretty good communication. And he does try, but it's never enough for me. I'm coming to a point now where I think that we're just on different ends of the asexual, allosexual scale. And the choices I have are either to accept him as he is or get out of this relationship, which has often lately left me unsatisfied. But when I think about the latter option, I always think, but everything else is so great. I'll never find someone who will check all my boxes. Plus, who's to say those boxes won't change from time to time? I'm so conflicted. We love each other, but is that going to be enough for me? All my warmth, Anya. Oh, Anya. It's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. It's really a tough one. Beyond just the regular changing that people do when they go in through relationships, we've got a couple who have been together during the pandemic and going through obviously some early, I think we can say early relationship changes, when things stop being quite so fuzzy. And, even the way they cough is cute, once you can get past that part,
right.
Then it does. You start to see things that maybe don't line up as well. And you have to kind of figure out for yourself what is a deal breaker, what is not a deal breaker, and what is a wait and see.
Yeah.
I think you get to a point in a relationship like that.
There's so many things about this that, like, she's really explored, like, I feel like, is it a she?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, Anya.
She doesn't give pronouns.
Oh, Anya.
Did not give pronouns.
The person has really identified for themselves. I mean, it looks like the person has really, like, thought through a lot of the pros and cons of the relationship. And there were so many, exactly, like, work partners during the pandemic. So, like, as involved, engaged in a relationship as a person can be. You've got love language situation where she expresses and Anya expresses and receives love one way, and he expresses and receives love another way. But then you've got the sexual difference, which is that innate, is that, what's the judgment there? And there was one other thing I wrote down, but there's so many things that Anya has thought through in a really full way. And I really respect a person who's, like, really thinking about all of these things. And the last thing is long-term relationship. I mean, that's, like, I am on my I'm married long enough to not exactly remember how long I've been married. I think it's 22 years.
Hey, we're 21 years this summer, so I feel you, babe. Yeah.
So, and I was reading this thing. I was listening to this love or sex expert talk about, he had this word, like, maturate love, like some weird adjective I'd never heard before. But this idea that natural, like, biology and chemistry is that you aren't, the sexual component isn't as dense, and the commitment and the partnership and the friendship does start to become more important. And as old as it makes me sound, there is that element of, like, just having this companion by my side all the time but they don't sound like they're there yet. They don't sound like they're there yet. And so there is something about coming to terms with, someone's love language, how they give love, how you receive love, and whether those two things are compatible, whether you can find all of those things more beneficial than, somebody who's ravenous in bed. It's coming to terms with what you are and are willing to accept. And it's really hard to, and sometimes regardless of whether you leave or whether you stay, you're still going to be dissatisfied sometimes too.
Yeah.
That's a lie. Everything's perfect. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's like if you, once you finish that first book and get it published, it's all wine and roses after that. Why are you lying to people?
Yeah, that's right. You're at the top of the mountain and you get to live there forever.
forever. The mountain just grows beneath you. That's all that happens. All that happens.
I wonder. No, go ahead, Roan.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I wonder, because Anya says that they've been feeling this way for a few years now. So I'm wondering if the relationship started out with more affection and passion and then just fizzled out. And you know me, they're in a band together. So I'm like, there's a whole nother level of stuff going on there. Anytime you work with someone that you're involved with, that's like added pressure, added stress for a lot of people. Some people it's like wine and roses, but for some people it's like you disagree on business, stuff. And so there
It changes everything.
It changes everything, and that carries over at home. You can't turn that off as easily. With a creative endeavor like a band, that can get really, really sticky. I don't know what roles they have, like if they share responsibility for the band equally. It sounds like they do, because they said Anya said duo. So I'm assuming that they are like equal partners in it. And if that is a source of stress for the relationship, then I wonder if that carried over into the affection, physical stuff,
Totally. And I think she's coming at it from a good place by saying that like she knows that no one relationship is ever going to be 100% satisfying. And I think that's that's such an important like base understanding to have.
Yeah,
so that's great. I think my question is, I actually wish we had a lot more information about like what does she mean when she says she wants affection and words of encouragement, and what does he give instead? Because Angelina mentioned love languages, and that's something that we've talked about before. And whether or not you believe in like the actual named love languages, certainly there are like people whose vibe is much more about being really direct and saying like, you look so good today, I can't wait to snuggle you later, right? And then there are people who will just give you like a little pat on the back, and then there are people who will be thinking all these things about you but won't say it. And so there just are lots of different styles, and it sounds like you and your partner just have rather incompatible styles of expressing affection. But I would be really curious, like, what have you asked for and what has he been able to do? Like you said that you've told him this and he's been really good about it. Like, but I wonder what that looks like. I do wonder if maybe it would be worth sitting down, not at a moment when you're upset, but at a moment when like things are really chill and everyone feels good, sitting down and sort of being like, I love you so much. We're so good together in so many ways. I do feel like we have these sort of two categories. One that is the way we express affection, and the other is sex, that we're like not really lining up on right now. And can we talk a little bit about things that we can both do for ourselves and for each other to make those be a little bit more in alignment? And like, I know this is me going back to my, like getting back on my shit about sit down and make lists. Really clear. But it's my, I love lists and I love clear communication. And so the combination is like, have like open a bottle of wine, light some candles, take a bath, and be like, can you talk to me about, like, tell me a story of a time when I made you feel really, really good, not sex good, just like a time when I said something to you or did something for you or told you something that made you feel really, really good, and have your partner tell you. And then that'll give you an idea of like what his mode of receiving affection is. And then you can do the same thing. You can be like, do you remember the time when you came home and you put your hands on my shoulders and you kissed my neck and you said that you'd missed me all day and you were really glad that we got to hang out together? That made me feel so good. It made me feel loved and desired. And it made me feel like you were thinking about me during the day. And like, I think telling those kinds of things in a story where you say what happened and then you say exactly how it makes you feel, it anchors those things together for a partner who that isn't their natural way of expressing affection. Because then instead of them being like, oh, they want me to tick things off a list, like tell her she looks nice, tell her she's like, that can just be a little abstract and a little rote. Whereas if you are actually connecting those things for your partner and being like, when you do or say X, Y, and Z, it makes me feel this about our relationship. I think that can really help someone come up with, or just like externalize things that they're already thinking or feeling about you. And then they know that it's not like, it doesn't feel fake. It really is. I'm sure that if you guys are in love, they have lots of nice things to say or think about you. So I really would suggest like a kind of formal exercise like that And even though it might feel awkward to bring it up at first, I feel like a good old fashioned, like, okay, I want to try something. Are you with me? And then just do it. Even if it feels a little awkward or stilted at first, it gives you so much useful information. And kind of sets the stage for having another similar conversation about sex. Like maybe have that one second, because it can be a little bit more of a volatile topic if someone's not feeling into it. But yeah, I really feel like saying what you want is great, but like saying what you want and then telling your partner the reasons why it makes you feel a certain way, kind of like, it's all about storytelling, right? Like a story and describing emotions really like, what's the word? Concretize or like bring to life those ideas for people. So yeah, I would try something like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, if that conversation is uncomfortable for you to have, or awkward, or, you know, sometimes you sit down to say things and you remember one thing and everything else goes away, you know, I think this is a period in time when being able to write it down is actually super helpful, whether you give it to the person in a letter, or if you use it as notes for yourself. That's a big thing that could be really helpful. One thing I kind of wanted to pull out on this is the fact that you've had these conversations, and you know, that things change a little bit, but then they go back. I wonder if perhaps your partner is conflict adverse. And so when you're having these conversations, it could be a mix of what Roan is saying, where they're not sure how to implement the things that you need, but it could also be, and only Anya can know this, is if the person is conflict adverse, and so they're willing to say yes just to make whatever this uncomfortable conversation is go away, or to get back to the Yankee game, or whatever it may be. Not that I'm married to that guy, but you know, so sometimes it's easier. I actually highly recommend it when Mr. Flynn and I will have issues, and God knows we will. The writing down helps significantly. Number one, because it helps with him being able to process the information the way that he needs to in order to understand. And for me, being able to have a conversation without bursting into tears, or, you know, whether or not I'm sad, it's just, you know, it's an emotional conversation. So I will cry. And I hate that because it like negates half the things you're saying when he's like, why are you crying if you're mad? And I'm like, damn it. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. But I do wonder, though, on the level of conflict averse of your partner. So that's number one thing I wonder about. Number two thing I wonder about is, and I think Zio touched on this, is this a band issue? Is this a work issue that's bleeding into the home life? Or is this a home life issue that's bleeding into work?
I bet you, I am willing to bet that they got together after they started this musical endeavor. I mean, you know, I've been in a situation, well, not this exact situation, but I've been romantically involved with band members. And there's something about, actors will tell you the same thing, especially when you're doing a play or a musical or whatever. If you're doing something where you're in a close proximity for a long period of time, and there's all this like emotions, highs and lows, and all this other stuff, and you form these bonds that feel like they're going to be there forever, and then the play ends and you exchange phone numbers or whatever, and then after 2 weeks you forget that person existed. With a band, you're with these people, and so those emotions and everything, it gets all mixed up. You're creating a song together, it's like, oh, we finished the song, it's amazing, and then you're in bed or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, things happen. And if that's an ongoing thing, and now here you are 5 years later, and it's like, well, it's not like it was those first 2 years, you know, it could be that you guys are confusing this really strong friendship, really strong emotional attachment, and like musical compatibility that you have with each other with a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
So that could be,
and you know, with the work and the home, you know, things do bleed into each other. And it's not just a, you know, it can be anything. Like, God love, I'd kill Mr. Flynn if I worked with him. You know, we joke, if we ever went on one of those like Amazing Race type shows, we would do really fucking well, but we would also be the couple that everybody was like, oh, those people are divorced in like 35 seconds, and that's just the way that we sometimes function together under stress. But all of that stuff bleeds into each other. And let's say a musical direction changes, like somebody is feeling like moving into another direction. Well, they may be internalizing a lot of guilt for that, because that means that all these other X factors have to change. And so it could be a security and a comfort factor of not feeling like, hey, I can't change musical direction because it would change home, or I can't change home direction because then it would change music. There's a lot of layers, and you kind of got to go back to Roan's favorite pony, and that is communicate, and be able to do that. The other thing that I would bring in, and this is my pony, pun about to be intended, and that is, when it comes to sex, there are a lot of societal expectations. Sorry. Of course the dogs go crazy. So apologies for if you guys are hearing all 5. So you've got, societal expectations for how much sex you should be having in this couple. And if you're not having that much sex, then you're obviously not committed, or he doesn't really like you, or she doesn't like you, or what they don't like you, or whatever it may be, right? Then you have the cisgenderized expectations, societal expectations on top of that. So if Anya, I'm making the assumption that you are a woman, so apologies if that is not the case. But if you are the female partner and you are socialized as a female in the United States, if you are not desired, especially within your romantic relationship, then you are expected to feel like a failure. And if you are socialized as a man in this society, then if you don't want sex all the time, then
there's something wrong.
There's a failing there too. So there's societal expectations. There's all of the internal stress that comes in it. And so there's a million things that can impact sex and impact desire. And so if what you're saying, the biggest issue is that you guys are not having sex as often as you like, which is what it seems like to me. If I were to create an actionable plan, when you have your conversation that Roan and Zio recommends, and Angelina, you need to also talk about if the not having the sex is the outcome, what are the things that lead up to that? Where are the stresses? Where are the fractures? And get to that stuff, because you can have a conversation about, I'm listening right now to a book called Atomic Habits. If you guys haven't listened to it, it's really interesting. But he talks about goals and how goals can actually stop you from getting to where you need to be. Because what you're doing is your goals are outcome related, as opposed to having something that is an internal change related. So if you're like, my goal is to have sex more often, and I want to have sex 3 times a week or 5 times a week, or every day twice, whatever it is, what you're doing is you're creating that goal, and you may be able to meet that goal, but you're not fixing any of the stuff back here, behind it. And that's really important as well. Different people with different sex drives, it's one of the biggest marriage counselors, couples counselors will say, besides money, is one of the biggest issues that couples encounter issues with. And that's because your sex drive changes according to hormones, according to stress level, according to 8 billion other things. We are sexual beings, but there are a million things that impact our sexual expression. And so all of that factors in.
And Avery, my husband and I got together in my early 20s. And so all of my friends were dating, as I was raising children and committing and stuff like that. And so they were going through these different, oh, it's so passionate. Oh my God, it's not so passionate. And so I would, and the main thing I kept asking them, and it's funny how you guys talk about your pony, like my pony is are you having fun together? Like, are
Yeah.
we,
Yeah.
you know, and
That's
and
great.
I think fundamentally, you know, as a woman, for me, fun was within fun is feeling respected and feeling honored. Like I can't go have fun with somebody that's not inherent to that part of that relationship.
Mhm.
So I kept asking my girlfriends, like, are you having fun? And for me, it's important to the point, like in all my books, outside of the bedroom, I want to have one scene where my characters are having fun together, you know, that they like
Mhm.
legitimately enjoy each other's company.
Mhm.
And so for Anya in that relationship, it's something that I would think about. As Avery, that's phenomenal advice about, you know, your sexual relationship is going to change. And one thing, and it's not to discredit and or not to devalue the importance of that, because it is, and everyone's going to be able to judge that for themselves. We couldn't do that for you. But one thing to keep in mind is, do you have legitimate fun with this person? Do you want to enjoy yourself with this person? Do they want to spend their time having fun with you? Because so many relationships, that doesn't happen if people are making judgments about the great sex, or about, you know, we've got the kids, or about we have compatible, you know, belief systems, which is great. But marriage lasts for, or partnership, and if you want to do one-on-one forever, that lasts forever. This idea of like, do you have a good time with that person, and to value that, because it is hard to find. I have so many married friends who, you know, if they have to be one-on-one with somebody, they're not going to choose their partner. And I don't think you have to, but it makes that day to day, for the years of when you don't want to go looking for other partners, it makes it so much more pleasant. So it is something to consider in
Oh
the
yeah.
of
Yeah.
this value, which and to kind of balance that idea of like, sex is going to change over time. But yeah, my pony is definitely like, do you guys have a good, legitimately good time together?
Yeah, Anya says everything else is great. I mean, one other thing I want to throw at you, Anya, is
Because
this
she hasn't had enough.
thing, and this is again, you know, there's a thing that happens in bands when people are dating within a band where they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
When you're in a creative thing, like, you know, it could be an illustrator and an author, it could be whatever, but if you're in a creative partnership, you're like, if I decouple in this personal way, it's going to affect the creative bond. And I mean, you don't want to get into like a Fleetwood Mac situation where like they're dating someone else, and you, because it's going to be in your face if they start dating someone, you know what I mean? So like, those are
Stop that
things.
when I'm taking a drink, please.
I'm just
Also,
saying.
I still hate Lindsey Buckingham.
I mean, Stevie Nicks,
So-
like her birthday just passed, and someone tweeted like, the Queen, because she wrote all these songs about what a shitty boyfriend he was and made him sing them for 40 years. And I was like, that's amazing. But,
It's true.
So like, we don't want to put you in that kind of a situation, but just think about that. If you got, I mean, you know, think about why you guys together, think about the kind of relationship you want to have. If it's not fulfilling for you as a romantic relationship, maybe it's just a friendship. Maybe it's just maybe this is your friendship soulmate. You know, like, think about other ways that you guys can take some of that pressure off of each other.
Yeah, and I think one way to take a little pressure off each other is just the question doesn't have to be just like, do I want to have a sexually fulfilling relationship or not? It can also be like, there are lots of ways to feel sexually fulfilled within a relationship that don't have to do with your partner having sex at the same time. I think that like, it would be great if you could do like a 1, 2, 3 reveal and each write down like, how many times a week do you find yourself wanting to have sex? And if it's like,
that's really
your
good.
partner, yeah, and if you write 4 and he writes 2, then you want to have 100% more sex than him, or 50%. I don't know how numbers work.
That's a lot of math.
Anyway, math. You want to have double the amount of sex, right? So great. So like, that means that twice a week, the two of you can have sex together, and twice a week you can be like, hey, I want to lie on this bed and have you sit in that chair, and I'm going to take this vibrator and you're going to tell me exactly what to do with it. He doesn't have to take off his clothes. He doesn't have to touch you. He can take off his clothes and touch you if he wants, if you want. But it's like, there's a difference between someone not wanting to like participate
The physical
equally
act.
in the
Yeah.
act of penetrative sex, and someone not wanting anything to do with sex. And there's like a huge spectrum between those two. And those are things that, like, I know for myself, there are times when like I fall on very different places in that spectrum. And if the question is like, not to put it so like mercenary-esque, but like, do you want to do a whole bunch of work and participate equally here? Or do you want to like sit over there and tell me what to do? I'm like, well, I'm just gonna sit here and tell you what to do. And other times I'm like, let's go. But I mean, I just think that
love
like
you so
there's
hard.
I know, right?
I love you too.
I'm thinking about that one scene you wrote in that one book, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh, you know what scene
It
you're
all
talking
makes sense
about.
now.
Yeah, like I think that there are so many fun, exciting, playful, engaged, sexy ways to have both of you participating in sex, but have the participation be equitable but not the same. And I think that one of the best ways to figure out if what you have is like a disinterested partner, a partner who has a lower sex drive, or a partner who just thinks of sex in multiple different ways and they may not be in the mood to do any one of them at any given moment, is to ask questions like this and gauge what their excitement in participating in different acts would be.
You just made my heart go all aflutter, because that is like my favorite thing, is being clear about expectations.
Yeah.
You apply it, well, hopefully you apply it in work, but it's great to apply that in a relationship as well. And it is basically absolutely everything that Roan just said, is, making your expectations clear to each other in a non-judgmental way, and then figuring out how to meet each other's expectations in ways that don't infringe on, like, if your partner doesn't want to have sex, it's not fair to make them have sex. It is wrong, to be very clear. That doesn't count as a solution. But yes, exactly what Roan's saying. Make your clear expectations. Oh my God, you really did. You made my heart go.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I think that it's one of those things, like, it can be awkward to, if what you're thinking about it is like, I'm going to tell you what I expect from you. Of course, that could feel awkward, but making an expectation known is really just about being like, this is my ideal. This is what I would love. And now that you know that, tell me what you would like your participation in this to be. And if what he wants is, I want to have sex with you 2 times a week, and I would, if you want to have sex 4 times a week, I would like those other 2 times to have nothing to do with me, then that's information that's really useful to have. And it's not what you want to hear maybe, but it is something that lets you be like, well, that is a deal breaker. Whereas if you're like, what if those other 2 times, and then you give lots of options, and you could even have him, I mean, it could be like a hot, sexy, like, these are all the things that I would love to do if I was getting off by myself. These are all the ways you could participate. I want you to rate each one on a scale from 1 to 5 of like how hot it gets you. And that gives a little
That is very hot. I'm taking notes right now, quite honestly. So yeah, keep talking, Roan.
Okay, so you make a list, and there are so many things, like, does he want to tie you up while you do those things? Does he want to blindfold you while you do those things? Like, you can make it really granular and ask. And I feel pretty sure that if this is someone who is interested in sex, that there will be some things on that list that he would love to participate in while you are getting off. Just some things. And it sounds like all you really will need is an indication that he's interested, that he's hot for you, and then you both get your needs met, because he doesn't have to feel bad about about not wanting something as often as you do. You don't have to feel bad about wanting something more than he does. Both of you are getting your needs met, but nobody's having to either exert more of themselves than they want to, or like rein in something that they want to let loose. And you get to turn it into a sexy conversation, and then you can always revisit it. So say you're like reading a romance novel and the characters do something that you and your partner haven't done before, you can be like, baby, I gotta check in, I got another thing to put on our list that I need to see how you feel about it. And I think that also just like the constant talking about sex will make it like to jump from we're at band practice, we're making dinner to like, all right, you in? That's like 0 to
Yeah.
60, right?
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
like
Mhm.
a casual, sensual, not sexual touch while you're making dinner, pushing aside someone's hair to kiss the back of their neck, or putting your arms around them from behind, like things that are not sexual, but just establish you're like not at 0, that's a 10.
Mhm.
Or maybe you're like, I want you to kiss me for 5 seconds before you leave, please. And if they want to, and then you're at a 20, right? So like little things that are sort of like walking you both toward sex when you're not in a sexual moment, but so that
Mhm.
when you get to the point where you really want to have sex, instead of it being like flipping a switch from 0 to
Mhm.
60, in fact, that whole day, what you've done is sort of like
Has been foreplay.
it's
Yeah.
foreplay.
It's foreplay.
And it's not sexual, it's sensual, but now you've met each other and you're sharing sensuality in a place where the move to sex from there is a much smaller step, which can feel like it requires less energy, which can feel like it requires less expectation. And so if you can like move both of you together a little bit closer to that, then sometimes all it takes is sort of like grabbing someone's hand and giving them a little pull and a look. And if what they know is that pull and look doesn't mean that I am expected to perform sex,
Yeah.
but maybe what it means is I am going to like sit here and watch you just like do your thing,
Mhm.
then it's like almost seamless. And so I feel like there are workarounds,
Yeah.
or that's not even a workaround, like that's just hot for like having two people who don't necessarily have the exact same level of sexual desire meet in the middle, that isn't them compromising, but is both of them sort of like running parallel but alongside one
They're
another.
writing a shared love language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, Anya, I hope we helped. And, you know, at
After
this
all.
point in time, not to be all in your bedroom business, but we are now. So let us know. Let us
write
know
us
if any
back.
of this
Yeah, write us
helped
back.
and
Hopefully.
what happened.
Mhm.
Not in
And
like
good luck with the
specific
music.
like detail, but yes, let us
I
know.
want specific detail. You can
They
write me.
can tell us in specific detail.
Exactly what happened. I think that was such a good response because she gave so much to work with too, like, and like very thoughtful. Very thoughtful about the ins and outs of this. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
I see what you did there. Sorry.
Avery 12-year-old Flynn.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh
I'm
my
very
God.
classy. Very classy.
Classy.
All right. Well, I'm going to segue us from
Okay.
this letter from Anya to our What Would You Do section, which is this week a letter from Slate that we're going to be using. And I'm going to read this one because I feel like it's not that long and I think the details are important.
Mhm.
So it's Slate's Pay Dirt column. Dear Pay Dirt, I have a high earning job, but struggle with depression. I need to live with other people just for the social pressure of needing to shower. I own a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo in the heart of downtown. 1 bedroom is my office. Yuli, who lives in the guest bedroom, came to me because a friend of a friend knew they were homeless and I needed a roommate. We lived together for 3 years in harmony. I asked Yuli a third of what a room share goes for in our city because they're clean, a good cook, and understand when to press me to get out of my head and when to leave me alone. Recently, my younger sister got tossed in the streets after her boyfriend bailed on rent. Her options are move home, where she hates our stepfather, move in the suburban hell with our sister and her babies, or stay with me. I offered to put her up for free for 6 months on an air mattress in my room. She declined because she, quote unquote, deserves her own space and wants my office. I start work at 5 a.m., and my sister is notoriously hard to wake up. The living room wouldn't work because my sister's a slob and it's the only communal space in the condo. My sister wants me to kick out Yuli for her. She says I, quote unquote, owe her because I'm her family. She's technically homeless and Yuli is on a month-to-month lease with me. She says if she goes home, our stepfather will abuse her, meaning they'll fight like cats and dogs. Our lives growing up were not easy and left scars, But am I wrong for not throwing Yuli under the bus for my sister? My sister makes me want to break out in hives, but she is my baby sister.
Oh my God. So many people.
I'm about to mute myself because the dogs are going nuts again. So I'm sorry, but oh my God, your sister gives me hives too.
Yeah.
This like family boundaries is such, like, a lot of people write about family boundaries in romance, like a lot, like, oh, my mom did this and that, and those books written by phenomenal writers, but that topic like makes me break out in hives, like, and I have a big family, but I just was like, this is my life, and then I would be like, I'm doing this, and I'd look up at them and like with very serious, scary eyes, and they'd be like, good job. Like, there's something about family boundaries that freaks me out, and just I just find that a confrontational topic, and the fact that this writer is already zoning in on trying to figure out boundaries. I mean, that person has this innate sense of like, this is not okay, and I need to be managing it, but that person hasn't had the full growth to say like, absolutely not. This is what I can provide you, and this is what I can. And to be pushed like this by a family member, it's just so uncool. Anyone in this situation, this is absolutely uncool. A family member wants the best for you, and if they don't, then you've got to advocate for yourself, because that person won't do it.
I totally agree. And I feel like some of the words, like the quote unquote words, are so weaponized here.
Yeah.
Like the ones that this sister has clearly said, like the sister says she deserves her own space. You owe her because you're family. And then the stepfather will quote unquote abuse her. Like these are really volatile words.
Yeah.
And so the sister, it seems like to me, is setting up an emotionally manipulative ask where if her sister says no for really reasonable reasons, then she's like implicitly denying that the sister deserves things or that she owes her things and sending her back to be abused, which like that is of course no joke. But if abused means fighting,
like arguing,
usually, that's like, my sister is my best friend in the whole world. We love each other dearly. And I'm trying to imagine a scenario in which she would never ask these things of me. She would be mad at someone for asking these things of me. Because like Angelina said, like someone who has your back wants the best for you. And what your sister is saying is, you offered me a solution, a generous solution when I was down on my luck. I don't want to take the solution that you generously offered. Instead, I want to make someone else's life hard so that my life can be easy. So kick out Yuli in favor of me. And like someone who would ask you to make someone else's life terrible so your life can be better, that's selfish and manipulative.
I mean, the sense of entitlement that the sister has, which sounds like a pattern, like to be honest, the boyfriend bailing on rent sounds like he just wanted to get out of that situation. Like, I'm just like, the sister just does not come off in a good light in any way whatsoever. No. Using a word like abuse to describe an argument with a stepfather, that's a very, very weighted word, you know. And deserve your own space in your siblings' condo. Like, why would you deserve a space in something you didn't contribute to? It's the whole situation is just ugly. And Yulia was obviously in a bad situation and has found a stable place, and the letter writer has found a stable place in their own space with this person who gets them and helps them and supports them, and then is feeling obligated to help and support someone who really couldn't give a shit whether or not they're contributing to their depressive episodes. If they're the sister's a slob, doesn't know how to take care of a space that they don't. I mean, the whole thing is just
especially when there is another option. Like she could go live with the other sister
in suburban hell.
In suburban hell.
Yeah.
Sorry, would you rather not have a home, or would you rather live in a place that you don't think is cool? Like go live with the person who has space for you. Save money from your job so that you can support yourself, and then you get to live wherever you want. And that's what I wonder about the boyfriend too. Like, if it was that they were splitting rent and then he bailed and so she couldn't cover the whole rent herself, then it's like she must have a job and money coming in, and that just means she needs to move someplace cheaper or like stay somewhere for 6 months and get money. But there's something about this sister that kind of makes me feel like her boyfriend was paying the whole rent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
he bailed and then she didn't have a place to live rent free, and so now she's looking to move in rent free with a sister living in the city so that she can like go out, hang out with friends, go drinking, right? Whereas like if you are in the situation where you don't have money because you don't pay for your own stuff, don't even try and act like you have to live in the city because you need to go out instead of on your sister's suburban.
Well, you know what? To me, the sister sounds like a chaos manipulator, right? So, just going by the information that we have here, going only by that, what we're looking at is somebody who is more than happy. This is somebody that comes and stomps on the sandcastle at the beach, right? And they do that because they want the chaos that follows. Because especially if you grew up in an abusive or very hard situation, which I understand, for some folks, that is a sense of control, right? So if what you're looking at is this person has a level of control and gains a level of control by instigating chaos, then that's super negative. And so it may not be so much that they're afraid they'll have a horrible time with the step-parent, stepfather, or that living with the sister in suburbia is hell, so much as in this situation, we have two people who have found a roommate situation that is so incredibly mutually beneficial. It's not even funny is what it sounds like. So this is a perfectly designed sandcastle to stomp on. And to have that, as somebody who has a very bad temper, right? I remember growing up and my mom would say, if you're not happy, nobody's happy. And that, honestly, that's something to overcome, number one. But that is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, it does.
This is somebody who is feeding off that chaos and that I'm not happy. My situation's not what I want. So everybody else has to be fucked up too.
Yeah.
Right.
And creating the chaos takes attention away from whatever it is that they're not doing that she should be doing. Like, I bet you the arguments with the stepfather are about standing on your own 2 feet, getting a job, like the whole, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes two people to do that.
Yeah.
Not just.
And there can be abusive arguments. There can be, right? So that's not to say that. And perhaps our letter writer here is downplaying the extent of those arguments. That's a possibility because sometimes the way to gain control is to make it seem as if the abuse is not really that bad, right? So optional. All right. So that's the number one thing that comes out at me. The number two thing is I saw this TikTok this morning, actually, and it was great because what it was somebody doing the lip syncing thing. And sorry, I'm old, so I get to say the lip syncing thing. And these young kids, these whippersnappers. And but what it was talking about was one person saying something offensive and bad, and then rationalizing it by saying, well, I have this negative stuff in my background. And the person they're telling it to is trying to explain, well, what you're doing is offensive and here's why. And they're like, oh, but I was just joking. Well, everybody who you're saying it about is being hurt by it. Well, not everybody. Yes. Everybody type of thing. And well, I have abuse in my background, so you can't say that about me. Right. So my absolute favorite, like, grade school psychology thing that came out of one of my kids' class. Those people that send those flyers home, they help more than just the kid. But looking at, it was like a circle of control, right? The things you can control, what's inside the circle, you can control. What's outside the circle, you can't, right? And what's inside the circle is always you, basically, right? And your reaction to things. So what this sounds like to me is that our letter writer has controlled her, right?
Mhm.
She can control all of those things. She cannot control the outside of the circle, which is the sister, and all the chaos that she knows is coming, but she's trying to.
Mhm.
That's why she's trying to set up these boundaries, and she's trying to figure out plans and doing all this stuff, where what she needs to do is remember that what she controls is the circle, and she has to make sure that what's in the circle is protected.
Yeah, it's weird
And that is not having her sister live with her. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. She should say no.
I mean, the
and then
sister
she
should-
should
yeah.
change her locks.
she should absolutely not be there. But if you're gonna have your sister stay for the 6 months that you said, do not, under any circumstances, ask Yuli to leave, because your sister will never ever leave. So, because the last line is, "Am I wrong for not throwing Yuli out?" And it's like, no.
No.
Do not hold on to Yuli.
Yeah.
And just like, because that, for one, if you do send Yuli away, your sister's gonna think, I won, and
Yeah, that's
I live
step
here
one
now,
in the
and
plan
that's
for
step one.
domination.
Yeah. So putting your foot down there, and saying, nope, Yuli is staying. So you either take what I'm offering you, or go live in suburban hell, or go live with our stepfather, or whatever it is. Like, this is what like Roan said, this is what I can offer you. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, it sounds like the letter writer is struggling with a lot of things, but hopefully they can have a moment of strength to be able to just put that foot down.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And say no, just for your own mental health.
Yeah.
And
if you're coming at it from like, this hasn't even happened yet, and you're already saying like, just the thought of my sister makes me break out in hives. You have
the stress is palpable.
That's imagine how you're going to feel after she's there for 2 weeks. Like, if you like, as someone who has struggled with depression and absolutely understands that feeling of like, get out of bed, take a shower. How does anyone accomplish these inhuman feats? If you found somebody who is like implements your mental health in a good way, and like helps you overcome those moments, or knows when to push you and when to back off, that is a delicate ecosystem. And if you found a great, like, not to call Yuli a tool, but like, if the two of you have a symbiotic relationship, then that is like, do not let that go, and do not allow a
chaos monster.
Chaos monster into that delicate ecosystem.
Involved in this kind of, I mean, there's the idea of like, these are all the reasons of no, why I manipulated everything else around me, why that can't happen, why this is the only solution. I've manipulated all of the information that this is the only solution, and you're it. And if you don't do it, then you've ruined me. And I mean, that kind of like arrow of narcissism, when it's outside your door, it's still locked out. And allowing them inside, why would that change when you've allowed it in your home?
It would only intensify.
I know. Open the door.
Don't open the door. Don't answer the phone.
Right. True. It's like a horror movie. Like, once the killer is inside the house, the call is coming from inside the house. Batten down the hatches, tell your sister no, change your phone number if you have to, and don't engage.
The idea that family comes first before your own self is intoxicating in fiction and Disney films, but in real life can be really, really harmful.
Yes. And if it's true, it has to go both ways. So like, if your sister says you owe me because family comes first, then you could just as easily make the case like, well, if family comes first, then you have to protect my mental health, and that's what is required for it. The two cancel each other out. So just like, take it off the field.
Yeah, that's the perfect answer. That is the perfect comeback. Yeah.
Well, I am glad that we all agree that you should really cut your sister.
Lock the door.
Don't answer the
phone number.
Don't answer the door. And Angelina, thank you so much for helping us give advice. Do you want to remind everyone where they can find you if they want to follow you on social media, where they can find your latest release, etc.?
Yeah, super. You can find me on my website at AngelinaMLopez.com. And my middle name is Marie, and I always use the M because Angelina Lopez is kind of the Jane Smith of the Latino world. So Angelina M Lopez. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, more often on Instagram, but Instagram and Twitter at Angelina M Lo, Angelina M Lo, LO. And then on Facebook at Angelina M Lopez Writer. And yeah, Serving Sin is my latest release. It wraps up a series. So you now have like, you can binge it. So like,
Binge read.
Royals, wine, strong women, worthy, admiring men, and like Spanish mountains. Like then it's the series for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And Bonkersville, like Bonkersville plots and lots of sex. Oh, in fact, I just got nominated I'm a finalist in the Good Sex Awards.
Oh,
Scene.
woohoo!
Congratulations.
It's official. I'm going to start putting award-winning sex romance writer.
Nice.
I haven't won yet.
You should.
Fingers crossed.
There you go. And we had you on win.
Exactly.
That's what we're gonna say.
It's gonna go on if I win, it's gonna go on my epitaph. It'll be my gravestone.
I like it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Dream come true.
I gotta have her back. She's great for my ego.
Yeah, no kidding.
This week's recipe is one of my absolute favorite things on planet Earth. And that is the soft pretzel.
Oh, yeah.
I love soft pretzels so much. I even like bad soft pretzels, but these are not bad soft pretzels. This is a dough. It's super easy to make, and you can use it for like regular shaped. I'm trying to like do a pretzel shape in the air, but also like pretzel bites. You could do pretzel buns. You could do pretzels in the shape of like your pet cat. I don't care what you do. But they're so good. And they're actually very easy.
Wait, hold on. If you do it in the shape of your pet cat, please send us
some pictures.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm gonna need that.
Also, how have I not tried to make pretzels in the shape of my cat? And will I do it and post pictures on our Instagram? Yes, I will.
Yes.
Totally worth it. But then I have to like eat my cat. Okay, I'll figure it out. Anyway, they're so good. The only thing you have to know, and I'm gonna say this like it'll be in the recipe, but I'm saying it here now because even as someone who has made soft pretzels a number of times, I have made the mistake of thinking that this doesn't matter. In the recipe, it says you give them a baking soda bath for 30 seconds. Do count to 30. Do set a timer. Do whatever you have to do not to leave them in the baking soda bath for too long, because if you do, they will be disgusting and taste like metal. And I just like need to say it because I've been there, and you do all the work and then you take them out and you're like ready, and you bake your beautiful golden brown salty pretzels, and then you take a bite and you're like, did someone just open a vein into my throat because I just taste blood? It's horrible.
Oh,
Anyway, I like to make mine with a honey
that
mustard
is really
dip.
descriptive too, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm a
Tell you're
writer.
writing horror right now.
Yeah.
Instead of a nice little blood dip, I like to make a honey mustard dip and a beer cheese sauce dip. But you can make whatever kind of dip you like.
Nice. Well, to go with your yummy pretzels, you need a soundtrack.
Yeah, you do.
How about that segue? So this week's playlist is called Leave the Door Open, inspired by the Silk. What is it? Silk Sonic? Is that what they're called? They call themselves?
Yes.
Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. With my dad is like obsessed with that because it's totally his era. He feels like he's back in time or something. But I've got Blueberry Pancakes from Fink, which I don't know if you guys have heard that song, but it's such a sweet song. Looking Too Closely, also from Fink. Invisible Touch from Genesis. So, thematic, topical for this episode. But yeah, it's a good one. Hopefully you guys will like it. Let me know in the comments. And again, I take requests. So throw those in there too.
Well, that brings us to recommendations for this episode. I am doing an Audible book right now, and my love of nonfiction on Audible is legendary at my house. But so I am listening to a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this book has one of the freakiest cold opens I have ever read.
Ooh.
So the book, I'll tell you a little bit first. It's just basically, it's looking at, I talked about it earlier in the episode. It's talking about setting how basically like these micro habits are what can help you, how to set them, how to stick to them, do all of that stuff. It's a Virgo book. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like for a Virgo who has lost their way. So it's my book. So you still love spreadsheets, you still love lists, you just don't check them off like you should anymore. So but it's really, it's interesting, and I like hearing some of the science behind the whole idea of the most productive way to go about and set goals. Like I just finished a chapter and he's talking about, if your goal is to do something more often, or your habit, I should say, not goal, but your habit is to do something more often, you have to be able to make it easy to access. It's things that already, but it's good to have reinforced, I guess is what I'll say. But the freaky ass opening that he has is he is in high school and he plays on the high school baseball team. And he was behind somebody else who was batting and they lost the bat, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, right in the face, made his nose basically U-shaped, busted up, like he had like 3 skull fractures. They took him to the hospital, had to air flight him to another hospital. His poor parents, it's all you can think about. And then, so one of the things that they were having him test out on is his sense of smell and things like that. So they had him blew his nose, and his eyeball pops. And it doesn't come all the way out, but it comes partially out. That the eyeball is not where it's supposed to be. And they sent him home from the hospital with his eyeball still all racked out. And it took like a month for it to go back in because of the air that had it was insane. I loved it. I'm in the shower listening to this going, oh my God. I'm like washing my hair for like 15 minutes because I got to hear the end of the story. But yeah, so it was a crazy cold opening, but it's actually really interesting, very accessible book. If you are somebody who is trying to start new habits or trying to rebuild on things that you should have been doing, it so far has been really great for that. Really give it a thumbs up. It is called Atomic Habits. It is by James Clear. So there you go. That's my rec.
And maybe check it out if you're like, you've got a popping out eyeball even.
Yeah. The doctors say it'll go back, and it did after a month.
Yeah.
Freaky.
No, it's a great rec. I mean, this isn't my rec, but just along the lines of like micro habits. I think, I've been learning Norwegian for 4 years or whatever. And the way that I've stuck with it is using an app called Duolingo, which basically it keeps track of the days that you do it. And my streak, I think I'm up to like 1,100 and something days, because I will go in and do one short lesson just to keep my streak going. Or if I'm feeling like, oh, I really want to study today, then I'll go do a bunch of them, or I'll do one that I have, and if I really don't want to do it, I'll go back and redo one that I've done. But it got me into the habit of doing it every day because I wanted to keep my streak going, because I get like little things.
Well, and that's the reward.
Yeah, that's the reward.
That's sort of part of the little 4-step thing, is that reward that comes at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm so impressed with you right now.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a lot of days.
But my actual rec is a book that I'm not even like a third of the way through this book, and I've stopped because I don't want the book to end. But
I love and hate those books.
It's coming out, and I don't be mad because it hasn't come out yet. But it's coming out June 8th, and it is Real by Kennedy Ryan. And I have,
for those of you listening and can't see, I'm giving her a double-barreled.
This cover, just when she showed the cover, I mean, you guys go online, find it. It's Kennedy Ryan, Real, REEL. It's the first in her Hollywood Renaissance series. It is Hollywood meets Broadway and jazz, and it is just this emotional roller coaster. Canon is like going to be one of my favorite heroes ever. I just know it. It's just, it's Kennedy Ryan. If you've ever read her, you know that she's going to rip your heart out and tear it into little pieces and then carefully sew it back together with like magical thread. So
she is phenomenal.
She's just
she
ridiculous.
is so damn talented.
I love and
love
hate
her
her.
books.
So yeah, but this is coming out, June 8th, I think is the release date. But if you like nostalgia, if you like jazz, if you like that period, if you like really emotional, intense love connections between the two protagonists, she's going to give it to you. So yeah, there you go. And the audio is amazing. I think she did announce the narrator, so I can say it, and by the time this airs it'll be out. So but it's Ebony Flowers and Jacoby Diem, and they are so perfect together. Like it's just an amazing sort of experience. So I'm in the middle of
she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, my rec is a little less art driven. So my parents are obsessed with this show, and I am right now coming to you from my parents' house, actually from my mother's study, for those of you who are viewing this. And she's an anthropology professor, so you can see all the issues of like Anthropology Monthly or whatever the hell it's called, and Medical Anthropology Quarterly.
Ooh.
Anyway,
a little light reading.
Yeah, just a little light reading. But so my parents are obsessed with this show called Escape to the Chateau, and they've gotten all of us watching it while we're here. So it's like a British, one of these, I want to call it like feel good reality TV, in the same vein as like the Great British Bake Off, Great Pottery Throwdown, but it's not quite so specifically about making, and it's not a competition show. So it's about this English couple, Dick and Angel, who buy an 18th century chateau in rural France and spend the next 5 years fixing it up, bringing it back to life, living in it. And it is a remarkable project. It's like 70 rooms.
Wow.
It has a 2-acre moat around it. It's got like
this is my kind of porn. Tell your parents thank
Seriously.
you.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so Dick is like an engineer by trade, so he knows how to do a lot of the work on his own. And Angel is an artist and a designer, and so they basically do like, they have weddings there, they monetize the space in lots of different ways, but they also do like all the renovation and all of the interior design. And so they're like a great pair to do it. And the things that Dick does to the house, to the chateau, are things that I'm like, like I fancy myself a fairly competent DIYer, which means like I know how to watch a YouTube video and then like screw something in.
Right.
This man is like incredible. It's half arrogance and half know-how, and I feel like that is the perfect combination for DIY. And they just like, it's amazing. And what's cool about it is it's 5 seasons long. The first couple series are like only 3 episodes, but then some of the later series are like 10 episodes. So you really it takes you through years of their life in this space, from like buying it in episode 1 to, I don't know, because we're only on series 2, but highly recommend if you want something that's like cheery and calming, because it's so uplifting and it's beautiful and it's in France, but also like has a little bit of drama because they're doing reno and things go wrong and like the place doesn't fit, and oh my god, they got the wrong batteries at the French store, you know, the kind of drama that you're in store for.
Way to sell it.
I should say, for folks who are like deep animal lovers, they do keep animals that they eat at some points. And so just know that going in, because I know that was like a hard watch for one of our tender-hearted number. But it is so delightful and lovely, and highly recommend. I think it's maybe on Acorn or Phoenix or one of those things named after something in nature. Yeah,
I'll find it.
And on that note,
you know, Phoenix, the national bird of Michigan.
Yeah, you know, something naturey. What is not naturey is us. I don't think any of us are huge nature folks.
Oh, Roan is.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I love
true, you
nature.
are.
You
Yeah.
can't tell it because of how completely coiffed I look, but I love me some fucking mud.
Okay, and so Roan and I are no longer friends, but we still want to be friends with you. So send in your letters looking for advice on relationships, on work, on writing, on anything and everything. We will give you questionable advice on whatever you send us because that's the kind of people we are. You can follow us on social media, subscribe to our newsletter where you'll be able to get recipes and a direct link to the Spotify playlist and all of the fun things.
All the Rex.
And thank you so much for spending, a little bit of your time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.